The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Live from the Pro Wrestling Report studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is Monday Night Meltdown with your hosts, Damian Nelson and David Hero.
I'm proud to say we're doing things the Vince McMahon way.
That's the bottom line. What? Let's go, Coach. Let's go.
Bringing you all the latest news and views from professional wrestling, Monday Night Meltdown is on the air.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural edition of Monday Night Meltdown from the Pro Wrestling Report. We thank you for joining us wherever you are all over the world here on Blog Talk Radio. We thank the hundreds of you that are joining us in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio as well, and the dozens of you who are on the phones right now calling in. David Hero is joining me, Damian Nelson here, coming from the PWR studios. A bizarre night in WWE, bizarre night on Raw, one that is going to give us a lot to talk about over the course of these first 2 hours of Monday Night Meltdown. David Hero, an interesting night to say the least.
Interesting, I guess. I mean, I feel like I just lost 2 hours tonight. I mean, we waited and waited and waited some more, and I don't mean... Obviously, they're going to be tying up a whole lot of loose ends in the next couple of weeks, but, boy, for all the build-up, for everything that, was promised, I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel like I was kind of cheated. Thank God it wasn't a pay-per-view.
And it was not a pay-per-view, and we are going to be taking your phone call tonight at our brand-new number, 877-317-9772. That you can call us at free of charge to get in where you fit in and be a part of the program. David Hero, huge stuff planned here tonight for the Monday Meltdown, and we want to make sure everybody follows right here on Blog Talk Radio so that you never miss an episode of the Pro Wrestling Report, Monday Night Meltdown, and all of our other shows.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.
I know you're upset that I suspended you last week, but really? You're going to drop my mic here on the opening of Monday Night Meltdown?
Bro, you know what? It was just...
Really?
I apologize. Seriously.
We got big things popping tonight, David Hero. We're going to be joined by the lovely Linda Kay with all the latest news. Dwayne Williams is going to join us to talk about TNA Impact Wrestling from last week. Matthew Thomas.
Wait. We've been talking about Impact on tonight's show?
Well, it's the Monday Night Meltdown. We're melting down the entire last week of professional wrestling.
Oh, my gosh. How about that?
How about that for sure? But firstly, David Hero, we're going to talk about WWE RAW. And again, for those of you that didn't catch it tonight, a big return, the big reveal, and returning to WWE RAW tonight was the man himself, who many speculated it would be. Y2J, Chris Jericho, is back in World Wrestling Entertainment. David Hero, not much of a surprise for this return. But what was surprising was what happened during the return. And as more time passes since Jericho did what he did in that ring tonight, it becomes better and better and better because he was the best in the world at what he did in that ring tonight, which was show all of the fans out there how they seemingly forgot about the Jericho that was gone and welcomed the Jericho that was back, where those promos didn't lead anyone to believe that it would be a different Jericho. it was doom and gloom in those promos. Tonight, he proved to the world that that's what he was there to bring back to WWE.
Well, and you know what? As much as we don't like how the whole thing came together, it absolutely makes the most sense. Because, as I was thinking about earlier today, Jericho coming back being Jericho does not bode well for the other superstars, because he can be more entertaining, he can be funnier, he can cut a better promo than most of the guys on the roster. And the last thing they need is another guy like The Rock that then overshadows everybody on Raw and SmackDown. So now the fans are going to hate Jericho, and they will boo him because Jericho did not give the fans what they were hoping to get, which will make things easier for whether it be CM Punk or whoever that may be going into a program with Jericho in the near future.
If anybody watched the I Am Jericho or the Jericho DVD that was released by WWE, he spoke about his first debut in WWE. He also spoke about his return to WWE in 2007 and said specifically, pretty much spelled out what he did tonight, David. He said, I had a big debut. I was in there with The Rock right away back in 1999. When I came back in 2007, the bar had been raised. I had to come back bigger and better and do something different. I didn't want the same thing. Tonight, he came back again while having only been gone about a year, but came back again and did something different, all right. What could be considered the most bizarre return in WWE history, but if you go back, and this is what needs to happen, we need you guys as fans to absorb this. We're not saying like it, but absorb this. Go back and think about it and look at those promos and look at what has been said. There are still more questions unanswered than what was answered tonight, such as, who is she, and why is it the end? Why is Jericho back? He has no reason to be back in WWE. He has done everything there is to do in that company. There is a lot that needs to be answered over the course of the next several weeks from WWE. And next week, I venture to say, most everybody's going to tune in again to see what Jericho has to say.
Well, who is she? Why can't she be Stephanie McMahon? I mean, if you think about it, Punk always made fun of Stephanie back in the summer, always buried Hunter. And
but the boobies at the floor?
Right. Maybe Jericho is who she brings back to get her revenge on CM Punk.
Huh. Interesting.
Why not? It would make the most sense. It's not going to be Linda.
That's right, because she'll be joining us with the news at the top of the hour.
I mean Linda McMahon, not Linda Kay. Come on, Damien.
Oh, you mean no? I was confused because now she is being referred to as just Linda in her next campaign for public office. Here's what was very interesting about Chris Jericho's return to Raw tonight. It at first it was awkward. It was like, oh my God, is he begging for this crowd to respond? And at the same time, are they really even responding? It was perfect, David. It was perfect because he had them not necessarily in the palm of his hand, but he was pulling strings and dangling those strings. And about three-quarters of the way through it, after it had all been said and done, it sort of became obvious that he wasn't going to say a word because the whole thing was bizarre and awkward. Very, very awkward.
It was very much so because, right when the crowd started to die down, then he made the motion like, come on.
Yeah.
It was very awkward. It's like, well, okay, what's he trying to do now? And,
right.
They did a good job of making sure that he's going to be a heel. Because usually whenever one of the stars comes back, they usually come back as a babyface.
Mm-hmm. But nothing led anybody to believe that whoever the reveal was tonight was going to be a good guy, a babyface, if you will. Again, that's where I say if you go back and you watch those promos, you watch all those videos, the end begins, the end of the world as you know it. There was nothing happy about those returns. I, for one, though, am happy that it wasn't The Undertaker. Let me explain why. We've seen The Undertaker come back how many times? Enough, in my opinion. Is he going to be back some way, somehow before WrestleMania? I would venture to say so. But it's good that it was somebody different, and I think The Undertaker, no matter what he would have done, would have been a bit of a letdown. I don't think Jericho was a letdown tonight. And I tweeted out earlier, a lot of people saying, oh, I knew it all along. Well, you know what? Let's be honest. Nobody knew it except the people involved. You may have suspected it, but nobody knew it. And even if you knew it, can you not have fun with it and be happy to see Jericho in Linda Kay's jacket? He had a bedazzler jacket on, David Hero. I don't know why, what sense that made, but that actually, I do know.
That jacket right there was to draw heat.
Yeah.
Because, you know what, tough guys don't wear jackets like that.
They don't, and Chris Jericho, as of the last time he left WWE, definitely wasn't going to be the one pandering to the quote-unquote hypocrites and wearing a jacket like that. This could be brilliance on the part of WWE and Jericho, David Hero. Maybe we don't realize it.
No, and at first we didn't realize it, and it didn't make sense. And we're like, okay, let down. But, now once you sit back and you look and you watch and you feel and you watch it again to see, okay, what are they trying to do? Well, the ones that are the big-time Jericho fans, the ones that are excited to see him come back, when they saw him come out with that jacket on, they're like, well, what the hell? You know what I mean? It's like, that's not my savior. That is not my Messiah. That is that right there is a jacket that Jericho would have ripped on somebody for wearing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So right away he has something on that's going to draw heat on him right away. So that was well done. And then if you notice when Jericho came on, then maybe this is just me paying too much attention to the details. His hair wasn't done in typical Jericho fashion. He just looked he looked a little bit messy tonight. You know what I mean? So he wasn't the cool, calm, and collected Chris Jericho that we normally see. He was a little more high-strung, a little more hyper, almost bipolar. Some people thought he was drunk, which we know with the wellness policy, that's impossible. And then he comes out in that Tron jacket.
It's impossible for some, not for all.
Well, right. So, it's like, okay, you know what? I get it. I like it. You know what? At first I hated it, but once I paid attention and listened and felt it, it makes perfect sense. Doesn't it, though? Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And let's recap again why it seemingly makes perfect sense at this point and what happened tonight. The big reveal, the It Begins, the End Begins, whatever you want to call it, evolved over the course of the last several weeks. Chris Jericho making his return to WWE television. I guess that the stories and the photos being tweeted out earlier of Chris Jericho standing in a Memphis airport were valid, but he was the man who did debut tonight on WWE RAW. Came out, did not say a word, pandered to the crowd a little bit, and then goes back to the back with somewhat of an I told you so smirk on his face. And, this is brilliant, David Hero. This is the Chris Jericho when he left WWE before. For those who don't remember, I believe it was a loss to John Cena, or a loss to, I forget who, that caused Jericho to be fired or to leave WWE Raw when he last left.
Was that what it was?
Or maybe that was in 05. I get confused.
Yeah. That was in 05. I forget who he was feuding with on that last run out the door. But wasn't he going in some tournament or whatnot, or I don't know, something special? But it may have been Randy Orton for all I know. I don't remember. But yeah, right now Jericho has a ton of heat, and he got it quick. And you know what? That's what they need right now is a strong heel. And that's what they got.
Well, it's going to be an intriguing next week on Raw, to say the least, because the ramp-up to WrestleMania is fully in place, and we would also find out that tonight the ramp-up to the Royal Rumble is in place as that championship matchup between Dolph Ziggler and CM Punk ended with Dolph Ziggler getting yet another victory over CM Punk, this time by a countout, meaning the WWE Championship stays around the waist of CM Punk. But shenanigans, David Hero, as John Laurinaitis came out to investigate why the match had continued after the top turnbuckle had fallen off, and then inadvertently causes the referee to miss Dolph Ziggler tapping out, and then inadvertently pulls down the top rope and causes John Cena to fall. I'm sorry, I said John Cena again. See, I'm so used to John Cena being the champion. And allowing CM Punk to fall out of the ring and then be counted out, allowing Dolph Ziggler to win. And then we would find out that it will be at the Royal Rumble for the WWE Championship, CM Punk defending against Dolph Ziggler with a special guest referee. That special guest referee will be the WWE RAW Vice President of Interim General Managers, John Laurinaitis.
And I think that they kind of rushed announcing that Royal Rumble match. I mean, when I was watching, the whole thing unfold, and I'm like, okay, we got, Punk and Dolph Ziggler going at it, I'm thinking, you know what, I miss the days, like when they would do the house shows, like when they would come to Milwaukee. And let's just, as an example, it would be Hulk Hogan against, let's say, the Macho Man on the first run-through. And then Hogan would lose by count-out, okay? And then at intermission, they would announce we'll be back next month. And then it'll be a rematch. And then all of a sudden, Hogan now loses by disqualification. It's like, oh, my gosh, the Macho Man has now beat him twice. And then they come back and they announce, okay, next month, the match to end it, it's going to be in a cage match or in a lumberjack match. So the fans were invested for 3 straight months. They could do the exact same thing on Raw. Yeah, let Punk lose by countout, and then next week they have another match where it's Punk and Ziggler, and then all of a sudden somehow Punk gets disqualified, and now Dolph Ziggler is up 2-0, and they put him in a cage, and then let Punk beat him that way. Trying to get some miles out of these guys. Quit doing everything so quick and hot-shotting it. Go back to an old-school formula of building a feud, and they could have some great matches with Punk and Ziggler if they would just let these guys do their thing.
So that point you made there at the end there takes me back to the whole Jericho thing. And we talked today, and I made reference to it earlier, but everybody sending out the pictures. There was a picture of The Undertaker in an airport. There was a picture of Ken Anderson in an airport. There was a picture of Elvis in an airport. There was a picture of Chris Jericho in an airport. And all these sites reporting, showing these pictures and whatnot. And all day long, David Hero, the conversation was about who the reveal would be tonight, and everybody trying to find out who it was before they found out who it was. Does that not go back to that point being made earlier about the lack of patience? And not just with wrestling fans, but in general today in our society, there is a lack of patience. People are used to spoilers. They're used to knowing what's going to happen. They're used to being able to go right to the Internet, get the information they want, not wait for the 5 o'clock news in the evening and whatnot. So I'm not faulting anybody for it, but it definitely shows a change in time. And if you go back to 2007 when Jericho first came back, if you go back to 1999 when Jericho first came into WWE, I'm not sure they could do either of those things as effectively now as they did then because of the change in our times as far as our absorption rate for news and information.
Agreed, because everyone right now, they want to know what's going on right away. I mean, my God, just trying to follow along on Twitter, doing a Monday Night Raw or anything is almost impossible. Everything changing and opinions and updates and pictures and so on and so forth. It's like, wow. I mean, talk about not having to even watch the show anymore, and you get everything you need, whether it be through PWRshow.com or TMZ or whatever. It's just nonstop.
Yes, a nonstop it was, but fun to say the least. Speaking of John Cena, as I did a couple times trying to talk about CM Punk, John Cena and Kane was the beginning of Raw tonight as we got to look back at the end of Raw last week, and then the end of Raw this week saw that 6-man tag team matchup of the Big Show teaming with Zack Ryder and John Cena to go up against Mark Henry and Jack Swagger, who was supposed to be Kane, but Kane chose not to participate, well, not until the end of the matchup. And Kane coming out from the bottom of the ring, attacking John Cena, attempting to pull Zack Ryder down into what seemingly were the depths of hell. John Cena making the rescue, and then the fire, the flames coming up from the bottom of the ring through the ring apron, a visually stimulating way to end Raw, one that continues the story between Cena and Kane. Those really the highlights of Raw, but if you pull back and look at Raw as a whole tonight,
it makes perfect sense. A lot of people were asking why that tag match was in the main event spot. Well, they were going to set the ring on fire, so that makes a ton of sense now, and why it wasn't Punk Ziggler. But those three things, you look at the main event, you look at Punk Ziggler, you look at Chris Jericho coming in. Overall, WWE took a major step today towards the future, if you will, because they still focused on a lot of those young talents that some people speculated they wouldn't be focusing on anymore, including the World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Bryan going up against the Intercontinental Cody Rhodes in what would be the first match of 2012 on WWE television. A solid Raw overall tonight. David, here I'd love to hear your thoughts on the highlights and lowlights.
Well, the highlights of Raw.
Of course, you're going to have more lowlights than highlights because you're at David Hero.
No. You know what? I guess for me, I like seeing Bryan Danielson get a big win tonight. I like seeing
a big win because he defeated a huge star in Cody Rhodes, right?
I thought it was great to see the continued build of Sheamus being a top babyface. I thought that was fantastic. It was good to see Jack Swagger headlining a Raw main event. See, that's three positive things right there.
Headlining your Raw main event. When's the last time we've seen Mark Henry outside of a tag team matchup? Because, he's running around telling people he's not injured.
Well, he's a little beat up right now. He needs some rest. He had to make it fair, didn't he? You know what? You know what? Listen, all kidding aside, even though we all know how much you love The Miz, and The Miz is a talented performer.
The Miz
but my
is
God,
they
are doing a fantastic job with Sheamus right now. You know what I mean? If you really watch how they're slowly building, in the same way they're slowly building Wade Barrett, they are starting to use some of these guys properly. Now, I may make fun of Cody Rhodes from time to time. But they have not done anything to really help him become a bigger star. If he's not wrestling Booker T, he's losing.
Yeah, well, when we talk about SmackDown later on, I think there's a lot of, I would disagree with that statement. I would simply say that you're wrong, David Hero. They're doing a lot for Cody Rhodes.
Okay, but when you put him on the big show, and you put him on Monday Night Raw, and then you got to put him in the match with the world champion, and then he loses clean, I don't get that. Just saying.
Yeah, I know how you're just saying. Yeah, Mr. Cynical. Cody can't do any right.
Listen. Hey, I am taking Cody's side right now by saying he's being misused on Raw. What they do with him on SmackDown is completely different. Okay? But right now, the bigger audience is Monday Night Raw. That's the flagship.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And perception is reality for a lot of people. A lot of people may not be watching SmackDown. They have to be careful how they're going to start portraying certain superstars.
I would not disagree with that. We do encourage all of you to join us here tonight on Monday Night Meltdown from the Pro Wrestling Report. The number, 877-317-9772. Again, that's 877-317-9772. We're going to be entering the phone zone in just a few minutes' time here, and still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report. We're going to be talking about last week's Impact Wrestling on Spike TV. Also going to be talking about this Sunday's Genesis on pay-per-view, and this past Friday night's SmackDown, which was a very entertaining 2 hours of television. That along with the news with Linda Kay. David Hero, you alluded to it earlier, talked about Sheamus and The Miz. Miz attacking Sheamus before the matchup, but R-Truth playing a prominent role tonight as he was stalking The Miz throughout the episode of Raw leading up to this matchup, and then interrupts the matchup, saying that his new friend, Little Jimmy, doesn't like The Miz, and then it was the vicious, the heinous act of that bottle of water over the head of The Miz. I mean, he may have a severe concussion from being hit with that 16.9 ounces tonight.
Yeah, and a washed off part of The Miz's tan. He's going to be hot about that.
Really?
I understand that stuff's expensive.
You're on the spray tan kick? You know, The Miz was partying in Vegas for New Year's. I don't know if you saw the tweets and the pictures, him and Maurice.
I know everyone's jealous.
I saw that. I also saw him in line waiting to get in some of those pictures as well.
No. See, what happened was there was a misunderstanding, and the limo driver dropped him off at the wrong door. Las Vegas Boulevard was closed because it was New Year's Eve, so they couldn't get to the. So what you saw was that same person that took pictures of The Undertaker and Chris Jericho today got a bad angle of The Miz getting into the nightclub in Las Vegas, and that's what gave you the impression that maybe he waited with the common folk.
Okay. Hey, you know what? You were probably right.
He's a superstar.
Listen, for my New Year's resolution was to tone back some of the hate. And
good luck with that.
I've put over The Miz, I've put over Cody Rhodes. I'm concerned about how they're being portrayed. See? We're at what? 20 minutes in, and we're doing good so far.
How about Eve's moonsault?
Wow.
Bella's win with the switcheroo, but I'm not sure it matters. Because Eve was spectacular again in that wrestling contest tonight. Now, a lot of people saying that match was brutal. I'm not going to say it was a 5-star match or anything, but Eve definitely impressed again.
You know what? Eve is an extremely talented diva. She works as hard as anybody else, in the ring. She puts her time in. She trains all the time. She gets pre-show ring work in. She wants to be one of the best. It's unfortunate, though, that she's stuck with Kelly because I think that holds her back.
Well, I'm not sure that's her choice to be stuck with Kelly, but you're right. It definitely Kelly. She gets no love nowadays at all from anyone out there, it seems.
Well, because it's not. You know what it is? It's because she was shoved down everybody's throats as
what?
The next.
Oh, yeah. She was shoved down everybody's throats.
She was. Yes.
Got it.
And the fans just can't believe that she could beat a Beth Phoenix or a Natty Neidhart, and God knows she couldn't beat a Karma. Right?
Exactly. Right. Did you see Karma's Christmas video?
No, I did not.
Oh.
Was that a pay-per-view?
No, it was not.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't get the same channels you do.
No, you don't. You don't, actually. Again, we're going to be taking your phone calls shortly, 877-317-9772. David Hero, we're on Facebook, and we put out a question out there on Facebook tonight. Your thoughts on Chris Jericho's bizarre return to WWE? Over 100 people have commented on it. We're trying to sort through some of those comments, and many others commented outside of that thread. But definitely discussion-generated, buzz-generated. Tomorrow, when we find out the ratings, the ever-so-important ratings, they're going to show a huge bump for WWE RAW tonight because, as you talked about earlier, David, the tweets were flying out all day. That stuff matters. People were looking forward to it. People were tuned in. People were ready, and now they're talking about it. Regardless, isn't this a good thing for WWE?
The fans made Y2J #1 trending worldwide.
Before he even said a word. Oh, he didn't say a word.
He didn't say a peep. But I'm sure he'll tweet about it later.
This is going to be, if it goes in the direction it's seemingly going in, this is going to be quite brilliant. Because Chris Jericho, I think, has something else in his arsenal now, which is the internet wrestling fan. And while I'm not stereotyping or saying anything, but think about, again, look back at what he was saying. He called all of us hypocrites. He broke all of us down. Remember how it all started? He attacked Shawn. That's when he went into this character that he was before he left. He attacked Shawn Michaels for lying to all the fans after faking a knee injury, and then called all the fans hypocrites for believing in Shawn and still supporting him after he lied. That's the basis of the Jericho we last saw. I think that's the basis of the Jericho tonight. This could get real fun and real soon with Jericho, especially, David, if he gets into a situation with CM Punk after he's done with Dolph Ziggler at the Royal Rumble.
You know what, though, Damien? At the same time, are we giving creative way too much credit? I mean, they have screwed some stuff in the past.
Oh, yeah. I went out and I bought my competition. Yeah, they've screwed up a few things in the past. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so let's just hope that they have thoroughly thought this out so they can maximize the money that can be made and maximize the exposure they're looking to get, because if you think about it right now, everyone's been saying Punk and Jericho. Well, Punk's busy right now with Dolph Ziggler through the end of the month, right?
Yep.
Unless Jericho is the reason Punk drops the belt to CM Punk.
Exactly.
But that won't happen until the Rumble, right?
I am fine with that. Jericho could win the Rumble, too.
But, so now what happens if, I don't mean to jump ahead, but if the belt does come off of Punk?
Goes on Ziggler?
It goes on Ziggler.
I'm fine with that.
Now, it's going to be very interesting, you know? It's going to be very interesting.
Say the least. David Harrell, it is going to be time to hop into the phone zone. I would venture to say we're going to have some very spirited callers tonight on this subject. We're going to take a very brief time out. When we come back, we're going into the phone zone here on Blog Talk Radio. We'll see you in about 45 seconds.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand. And get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. Covering pro wrestling like no other, this is Monday Night Meltdown live on Blog Talk Radio.
We want to welcome everybody back here to Monday Night Meltdown. Damian Nelson, David Harrell, soon to be joined by all of you great callers here on the phone lines, and then into the news with Linda Kay. And then more discussion about wrestling, including Impact from last week and Smackdown from last week. David, Raw tonight, would you give it a pass or a fail?
Oh, boy. If I take out all the expectations that I had on this, I'll give it a pass. But if I were to give this a pass or fail right as it went off the air, I would have said it failed. But now that I had some time to think about it and see, okay, is this the direction? Does it make sense? Yeah, it passes for right now.
The Monday Night Meltdown phone zone is now open. Give us a call live at 1-877-317-9772. And be sure to press 1 to get in where you fit in and be part of tonight's live show. We'll call on you by your area code, and when you hear it, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then proceed with your question or comment.
And let's go to our first caller, who's calling us from the 707 area code. Caller from the 707, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ruben. I'm calling from Runbar, California. What up, what up, what up?
Hey there, Ruben.
Hey, Happy New Year to you guys, man.
Thank you,
amigo.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. If you're a true wrestling fan and if you really understand what Chris Jericho just did, he basically did exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. He just entertained the crowd. He did. He didn't have to say a word. He just came out.
Who did he entertain?
Well, he entertained the crowd. What are you talking about?
Well, maybe for the first 30 seconds, but it got pretty stale after that.
But you know, he kept it going. Most of the time when most of the new stars come out and they say just their 5 lines, the next thing you know, you're like, hello? Is that
I'm here, I'm listening. Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but you didn't. Ruben, I wonder, though, when The Rock came back in February, did you just say, oh, there's his 5 lines, that's it?
No. The Rock entertained people, though, but you got to remember, The Rock and Chris Jericho are totally 2 different cats. The Rock, he can come out and... But if you remember, if you go back to when The Rock and when you had Mick Foley doing This Is Your Life to John Cena, The Rock didn't say anything. He came out to the ring, rock bottom, left the ring, he was done. but he entertained everybody. It's almost the same kind of concept. Now, what I think about Monday Night, it's almost the same concept. Like I said, in time, we'll figure this all out, just like what you guys were saying. When they go into Royal Rumble, he'll make it even more clear as to what he was doing. He'll probably cost CM Punk the WWE title. He'll go to Dolph Ziggler, and then he'll be in the Royal Rumble, and somehow CM Punk will cost him a chance to get to the title, and there's your feud for WrestleMania. It'll go down something like that, the way you guys describe it, though. For me, I'm with Hero. Raw was kind of 50-50, but they're getting there. If I was to do Raw, I would have all the stars there because it's like the start of the new year. We need to be reminded of who these guys are, and that way we can say, okay, we get it. We see who you all are. We understand where you guys are going with this because now it's time to make that WrestleMania run. We need to see all these people so that way we can get an understanding of where this is going to go.
But I think, thanks for that call, Ruben. I think as we talked about earlier, though, you did see a lot of those newer stars that a lot of people still need to be introduced to on the program tonight. And I'm even talking about the World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Bryan Danielson, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk. Well,
where was Eric Boone and Beth Phoenix tonight?
It's a good question. I mean, I know Evan and Kofi were trying to get themselves trending before they appeared on Raw tonight. Maybe they were in the dark match. Don't know. But let's, good points by Ruben. And again, I think the real center of his point was that Chris Jericho entertained. I just don't know if enough people realize he did entertain tonight, which is the genius of it all.
So, wow, he entertained, like I said, the first 30, 45 seconds, and then the fans grew tired of it. There were far more groans than cheers when he left the ring.
Sorry about that. David Hero is still playing with my microphone. I've now cut him off because he's going to learn to be, you know what, I don't even need him anymore for now. Linda's with us, and we've got a caller calling us from the 269 area code. Caller, sorry about that delay there. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
David from Michigan.
Hello, David from Michigan.
Do you guys hear me this week okay?
Can hear you just fine.
All right. The whole Jericho thing was interesting, which was entertaining, but I was like, come on, is he going to say anything? And I like the promos, the end of the world as we know it. CM Punk does call himself the best in the world.
Right.
So that's my little I guess I'd give Raw, I guess it was a pass. It's kind of odd the way they ended it.
It's surprising you have to think about that, though. Because you don't sound so convinced that you want to give it a pass.
Yeah, I'm not, because the wrestling was okay. I mean, there was some good matches on the show. I mean, I think last week's was better than this week's.
It's fascinating, though, because the theme seemingly is that it was barely a pass, maybe a fail, maybe in the middle. You had Chris Jericho return to WWE tonight. At its core, regardless of what he did and what he didn't do, and how popular it was when he chose to leave, it would seem like that would make it an automatic pass. But that didn't even do it. That's fascinating.
He did say one thing. He did say, yeah, many times tonight.
That resonated with you, Linda, huh?
Oh, yeah.
David, did you have a final point?
It was important. Who punt-kicked Jericho when he got injured. He was awfully concussion, supposedly, when he last left.
It was Randy Orton. He punt kicked him, right? Someone did tell us that on Twitter.
Yeah, and he was on the stretcher and all that, where he was dancing on the stars.
Yeah. I still think, I think that if this is given time, and thank you for that call out in Michigan, David from Michigan. We apologize for that brief drop-off. And David, I tell you, Linda showed me what you were doing over there with your microphone and dropping mine out and all that other stuff. And, yeah, look, I reinstated you. Get over
Yes,
it.
you did. And I appreciate it. Let me address something quick. When I say he wasn't entertaining, and then, of course, people are saying, well, but that's what he was supposed to do. Yes, he established himself as a heel. But if we're talking about entertainment value, I don't think the majority of the people that are walking out of that building in Memphis tonight were saying, wow, that was great that Jericho came back. There's more confusion than anything else. So let's just clarify that there's two different scenarios. One being, did he get his character across? Yes, he did. And two, was he entertaining? Yes, when he first came out, the flashy Tron jacket, the crowd was going nuts. He comes to the ring. Everyone's waiting to hear this promo where he's going to rip on CM Punk or somebody. And they waited and waited and waited. And then it went from being entertaining to, okay, now this is boring. Now I'm getting irritated. Now, if I'm at home, I might even consider changing the channel. And that is a lot of the stuff that I saw on my Twitter feed tonight, with people saying, okay, I just changed the channel. This sucks. So, yes, it was entertaining for a little bit. Yes, he did get his character across that he's going to be a heel. And, yeah, there you have it. So everything was accomplished. They did what they were supposed to do. And now let's just hope that the wrestling fans tune in next week to see what happens with part 2.
I don't think there's going to be a choice but to tune in next week. Hell, we might get something on SmackDown this Friday night. Who knows? I mean, we'll know tomorrow.
There's no way they're going to have Jericho on SmackDown.
You know what I noticed as well? As you say, there's no way. SmackDown's been getting a lot of love on the Raw side of things as of late. I don't mean just the SmackDown stars appearing, but we saw 3, if not 4, promos about this Friday's SmackDown on Raw tonight. And, you know, we've gone weeks on end with no mention of SmackDown barely on WWE RAW. So I think that they're realizing, and keep in mind, SmackDown's ratings on the rise for the last several weeks, if not months, and a great show, I thought, last Friday night. Now, I agree with you. We're probably not going to see a continuation of what happened tonight on SmackDown, but maybe when the WWE video peeps get their hands on that footage from tonight and repackage it and present it real nicely, it'll be more clear to us. But your point, David, is exactly dead on about the fans in the arena. They had to leave there not confused, not baffled, but bewildered as to what they saw because they didn't get the television and the visual presentation that we did of it tonight.
Right. You know what? What they've really done well so far on the Raw brand has been keeping John Cena off of Kane. And just Kane getting the better of John Cena. They're doing a fantastic job of that because we all know what will eventually happen in the end is that Cena will get all of his big moves on Kane and, you know, drive him straight back to hell or whatever. But I'm really impressed how they've kept those two apart.
Paul Heyman's philosophy or, you know, old school wrestling philosophy. Don't let them touch each other.
No, well, I mean, of course, Kane has been getting his licks on John Cena, but that's fine because you want the heel to get over on the baby face until it's time for the baby, you know, to get his heat back.
Let's go to our next caller, calling us from the 251 area code. Caller from the 251, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, everybody, how you doing? This is CJ from Mobile, Alabama.
Hey, CJ. What are your thoughts on Raw tonight?
Well, I was kind of disappointed as a wrestling fan. I understand where y'all guys coming from because y'all professionals and y'all are analyzers of the sport. But as a fan, looking into Monday Night Raw, having the mystery tweets going around, oh, this is possibly Jericho, and then actually it being Jericho, it was kind of disappointing. And then on top of it, when he didn't, you know.
So wait, it was disappointing to you because everyone was talking about it being him before, and it was actually him. That was a disappointment for you, you're saying?
Yeah, because like normally with the WWE event, if their storyline is being spoiled, they'll turn it around some type of way. And it would have been different, like if Jericho would have came out and all of a sudden somebody else that you would never would have expected, like, for example, the Undertaker Triple H situation last year. Everybody knew 9 out of 10 it was Undertaker. But then all of a sudden to see Triple H coming out the same time, returning, it made it a little interesting. It would have been made it a little interesting if Jericho would have came out. We already know he was still, as you can see how it was his reaction after the 30 seconds of cheering. But all of a sudden, when he wanted
Jericho and Brodus Clay. That's what you wanted tonight, huh?
No. I wanted somebody like possibly. I would love to see Jericho versus
we didn't see Jericho.
Yeah,
well, maybe we won't see Undertaker next week. I mean, they can't put all their eggs in one basket. And while your comments definitely make a ton of sense because it was to a degree spoiled, but I would venture to say last year, aside from those that thought it was going to be Sting on 2/21/11, that was somewhat spoiled as well. Tonight, you knew it was going to be Jericho, but there's still that little bit of doubt, right, David? There's still that little bit of doubt where you go in and you're like, you know what, let's see what they come up with, and let's see what else we get, because I think overall tonight, Raw was extremely solid and moved the program forward as opposed to backwards, even though the program centered around the return of a former star.
The problem with Raw tonight was the high expectations. And what do I say about expectations, Damien? Whenever you have them, it's always the first step to disappointment. So that's part of the problem with tonight's show. But on a lighter note, John Laurinaitis tweeted out tonight that Brodus Clay will debut next week. And he promises.
He promises and says he has no reason to lie, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Talk about a guy, Brodus Clay, if he would have kept his tweet shut and not mentioned he was going to destroy John Morrison, I think he would have been back on TV by now.
Let's go to our next caller, calling us from the 347 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? All right, let's try our caller. Caller from the 973. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, hey, Damien, this is Don from New York.
Hey, Don.
On Michael Cole, we heard some rumblings about how they thought he might be burying some mid-carders and possibly affecting Raw ratings. Did you notice a different Michael Cole tonight that wasn't quite condescending, more what we heard about how just stick to the action Michael Cole? What did you think about that?
Thanks for that call, Don. I would say this about Michael Cole. He called Daniel Bryan a pipsqueak tonight. Now, even if some people may consider that true, your lead analyst, your lead announcer on your programming should not refer to the man holding your World Heavyweight Championship belt as a pipsqueak. That was essentially, though, the end of the Coleisms for the night. For some reason, it did get turned off. I did notice that as well. It did get turned off. But it struck me, because those reports have been out there, it struck me that Michael Cole would say that about the man holding the World Heavyweight Championship. History notwithstanding, the challenge with that whole thing is, look at all these guys who are on top right now, minus Dolph Ziggler, minus Cody Rhodes, minus The Miz. Michael Cole's buried them. He's buried the Divas division. He's buried Daniel Bryan, and he does so at every chance he gets. So if that's the guy you're listening to, because sometimes the announcers are more important than the talent and those are the ones that should be getting over. And maybe the thought process is they'll get over more because Cole is burying them. But that's not working.
The problem is, isn't Michael Cole the same height as some of these guys?
Cody's taller than him, Dolph Ziggler's taller than him, and The Miz is taller than him.
So. Well, I wasn't talking about Dolph Ziggler. Damn. So, just curious.
Thank you for that call, Don, out in New York. And let's go to yet another phone call here. And caller from the 732, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
How you guys doing, man?
Great. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Tremendous.
It's Chris from Jersey. Hey, listen, I don't have a question, but I do have kind of an opinion. The thing is with Jericho, I mean, he has basically out of everybody that's made their debut or re-debut, it's pretty much like for Jericho, he's had the best debut ever. And the second, or the first re-debut ever, besides The Rock, obviously, last year. But just to, do something like he did tonight, if anybody could pull it off, it's kind of Jericho, because you know how he likes to mess with the fans. But at the same time, I see the artistic value, but that's not what we want to see. We want to see him come out, cut a promo, and have, the three best debuts or re-debuts of all time. And I don't know. We all wanted that, but that didn't happen. But does it really matter? Yes, in a sense, because of his track record as far as his debut, promos. But at the same time, who gives a crap? I mean, next week when he does cut his promo, we're all going to be on the edge of our seats. But thanks a lot, guys, and what do you think of that?
Thank you very much, Chris from New Jersey. Again, and you're taking the patient approach, and that is now we want to hear why he did what he did tonight and why he's back. Can't think of more reason to tune in next week. I'm David Hero.
Well, no, it makes sense because you got a big rating tonight. You get another solid rating the following week. Then they'll have some other shenanigans for the third week of January, and now you're going into the the go home show for the Royal Rumble. So they can do 4 good, strong weeks of business. And then, of course, the Raw after the Rumble is normally pretty solid. And then you're going right into the Elimination Chamber. So they have an opportunity of making 6 to 7 strong weeks of TV because they're going to need it now because, let's face it, the month of March, there is no pay-per-view.
Exactly.
So they're going to have to build off of Raw and SmackDown to make people interested enough to buy WrestleMania.
Particularly interesting, too, is we just went through the second half of the year, which is where the pay-per-views are generally compressed. Now we go from TLC some 2 weeks ago to the Royal Rumble, which is until the end of the month. This is like a long stretch of open road for WWE to build on, as you talked about a minute ago. And they are building for sure. Remember last year, every year in January, something big pretty much happens on Raw. 2 years ago, I think it was Bret Hart coming back. They use this as the springboard to what? First, not remind people that they're on the air, but get people back into the viewing habit of tuning in on Monday nights, knowing that we're coming off the holidays, and then giving them a reason to stay tuned in. This is going to be an interesting run for World Wrestling Entertainment. And I would have to say that tonight, I think Raw was a pass. I think it delivered solidly. Great matchup between Punk and Ziggler. I like the finish. I like where it's going. I like what's going on with John Laurinaitis and the whole CM Punk thing. I think that the Cena-Kane thing is still progressing slowly enough but fast enough to keep interest. And the Jericho return, while not initially did I think this, but I think the Jericho return was borderline brilliant. It could be one of the smartest things we've seen in a long time in professional wrestling. We'll find out if that was the case coming up in the next few weeks. But I would say Raw was bad.
It's brilliant for guys like you and for most of our listeners. It wasn't brilliant for the 10, 11, and 12-year-old fans sitting in the arena tonight because they didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. Why did he talk, Mommy? On our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report, all day long we shared with you some of the returns of wrestling reveals, if you will, from The Rock to Stephanie McMahon to Christian to Vince McMahon to Chris Jericho even. You can check all that out on our Facebook page right now, including the amazing conversation going on our Facebook page. I want to throw a shout-out to all the hundreds of you that are joining us and on Blog Talk Radio as well in the chat room. Literally, nearly 400 of you right now chatting with us in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio, and we are attempting to extrapolate some of your comments so that we can share them with you, but it is very difficult to track all of that conversation, along with our 13,000 followers on Twitter, David Hero. But be that as it may, it's time now to go to the second hour of Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio, and it's time for the news.
It's time for the week's headlines, brought to you by PWRshow.com, the only wrestling website with verified pro wrestling news, along with the first look at all of our episodes. Let's go to the news desk with the lovely Linda Kay.
Hello, everyone. All right, we got some big news from the world of UFC. Brock Lesnar retires from the UFC after losing to Alistair Overeem in the main event of UFC 141, then announced his retirement from UFC after the fight. Lesnar lost via TKO midway through the first round when Overeem landed a kick to the midsection. Lesnar said that retirement was coming soon anyways. Now, Lesnar's UFC career is over. Let's go to Lesnar's comments following the fight.
Obviously, you're disappointed. You've been out of the octagon for a long time. Give us your thoughts on the fight and your future in the sport.
My hat's off to Alistair Overeem. I want to take my hat off to all my training partners, my wife, my family. I've had a really difficult couple of years with my disease, and I'm going to officially say tonight was the last time you'll see me in the octagon.
Brock, you had an amazing ride going from no mixed martial arts fights to jumping right in with the best of the best. If this is your last fight, I want to thank you very much for some great fights inside the octagon.
I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the Fertittas, Dana White. Brock Lesnar is officially retired. I promised my wife and my kids.
A little bit surprised from UFC last Friday night, David Hero. I know you were watching live, and Linda giving us that news there, and then we're hearing that clip. A lot of people thought from that, though, that, some 2 days later we'd see Brock Lesnar show up on Raw tonight, and that wouldn't be the case, obviously.
Well, the timing would have been perfect for it. When it happened, and I was like, oh, he's going to be at WrestleMania. Because, he very well still could be at WrestleMania. Because The Undertaker needs a match. Right now it seems to be Triple H is going to be his match at Mania, but right now he needs a match that can be on the same level, on par with Cena versus The Rock. Because don't you think that Taker deserves it? 20-0 at WrestleMania. I think he deserves that big marquee matchup as well.
Absolutely. All right. And in other news, MVP says John Laurinaitis gets a bad rap. Reporter Scott Fishman of the Miami Herald released a new article online with former WWE superstar MVP. The former WWE United States champion talks about the reasons why he left World Wrestling Entertainment. MVP said in an interview, and I quote, "I guess more than anything it was that my contract was coming to a close. I had a year left on my contract. John Laurinaitis was coming to me to resign like he had a number of times. I had actually been avoiding him because I hadn't made my decision yet. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do." MVP went on to say, "On a professional level, it was a culmination of a lot of things. I just wasn't happy anymore and felt I wasn't being given the opportunities that I had been given previously. It was time for me to make a decision, and I didn't want to resign. I asked if I could be out of that final year so I could go and pursue my original dream of wrestling in Japan. I have to say, John Laurinaitis gets a bad rap from a lot of people. He is in a really crappy position. His job makes you very unpopular."
I can relate to John Laurinaitis. I can relate to that. When I had to make the difficult decision to suspend David Hero last week due to his unprofessional conduct, I knew that the ratings would still be there because people, of course, tune in to see me each week. But I knew I had to do what was right for the company. I had to do what was right for PWR and teach you, David Hero, a lesson. Now, next time, there will be financial repercussions as well.
Financial? Really?
Well, I'll have to fine you, ass.
Fine
I guess.
Listen, it's all about ratings. Paul Fix even agrees with me. He's like, Damien needs to lighten up, have a little joke once in a while, appreciate what's going on. Dude, it's all fun and games. No one's gotten hurt. Well, you kind of did, but it was not that was you and Kevin Thorne. I had nothing to do with that.
All right, next story, Linda. Thank you, David.
All right, WWE Tough Enough runner-up is creating a fitness program. WWE Tough Enough runner-up Luke Robinson announced that he is working
program? Like
a fitness program.
Wait a minute. You're having the Tough Enough runner-up is making headline news? Are you kidding me?
Worldwide
you go from Brock Lesnar
yes.
retiring from the UFC to some jabroni named Luke now doing a fitness video.
Okay. He's working on unveiling a world-class fitness program that will be based in Maine. The Banger Daily News posted an article online featuring quotes from Robinson, who said, "Wrestling is still my primary goal, but I think this can be a sustainable, lifelong job post-wrestling. Even if that career never comes to complete fruition, I am so passionate about the fitness and nutrition side of life and about changing people's lives." See, there are a lot of people in the world here, guys,
How inspiring for Luke to do that. That's inspiring. He's capitalizing on his recent success, or not so much, and he's trying to change people's lives.
Hey, if he was any good, he'd be signed to FCW already. Right?
No, I guess.
Yeah, so come on.
Right.
Linda, I love you and adore you, but you should be a little ashamed that was part of your news tonight.
You know, I like to touch people's lives and change people's lives, so I want to see someone else that does it, you know.
Careful how you phrase that. That's how you get yourself in trouble.
That's how rumors start. All right, and another news. Stephanie McMahon grants an interview to RxMuscle.com.
Speaking of rumors.
McMahon had some revealing answers during the interview, including an explanation of her meeting Triple H. She says, "We were married on TV as a fictional couple, and life just imitated art. It wasn't love at first sight, but I bet you could call it chemistry at first sight. I've never been more attracted to anyone in my entire life. He would just look at me, and I would blush. Still happens to this day, actually." End quote.
Oh, these are all feel-good stories. She's so... When often they get to look at each other. Well, never mind that. But the pillow talk, I wonder how many matches get booked in the master suite.
Wow.
Well, it's a valid question.
How about the bus?
Those buses are rocking.
And you know he's got the multi-million-dollar one.
Oh, Linda, I hope we have at least one more headline here.
I do. A little ratings update, gentlemen. Ratings update. All right. Last week's WWE RAW scored 3,820,000 viewers in its first hour and 3,891,000 viewers in hour 2, while Impact Wrestling had 1,510,000 viewers. And WWE Smackdown was number 1 on Sci-Fi for the 65th straight week. Very impressive.
Oh, it's better than Doctor Who, isn't it?
Hey, no, Doctor Who's whipping tail. The Christmas episode was on the other night. Did you watch it, David? Linda did.
No, I did not. I did not watch Doctor Who.
That's why.
Was he on
have
first,
I ever
or
strayed you
what was
wrong?
he on?
Have I ever strayed you wrong with a television show?
No, you got me hooked on Hardcore Pawn. I was I just got to make sure I get that right. And yeah, I mean, The Real Housewives of Detroit, that was another great show you turned me on to. That was fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda, for the news. I like you sitting over there at the news desk. This is nice. I enjoy that. I enjoy it a lot. We'll see you again next week, the lovely Linda Kay with this week's news. David, you know what time it is now? It's time to talk a little bit of TNA Impact from just last Thursday night. I'm sure everybody's ready to change gears to that because, you know, everybody wants to hear about Impact.
Now it's time to get the meltdown on last week's TNA Impact Wrestling, along with a preview of this Thursday's Sudden Impact Radio.
And we are joined, David Hero, by our latest analyst to join the Pro Wrestling Report team. And he joins Meathead every Thursday night on Sudden Impact Radio.
Oh, I apologize. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You really should.
I'm just being honest. That was part of my New Year's resolution, was to be more honest.
Dwayne Williams, welcome here to the program. You're going to be sharing a little bit on SmackDown from last week. Meathead was scheduled to join us tonight as well. However, he had some personal issue that arose, and is not able to join us. We'll be joining you again Thursday on Sudden Impact Radio. So, Dwayne, Impact last week. Please tell us what that 2 hours of television entailed.
2 hours of television, Thursday Night Impact, TNA, Madison Rayne, not the knockout VP, definitely one of the headlines.
Was she trying to scream like
Vicky?
Like Vicky Guerrero? She sounded like now that's the thing about Karen Jarrett, and people have compared Karen Jarrett to Vicky Guerrero, including on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's no comparison because Karen's not trying to be Vicky, but it seemed like Madison was trying to be a little bit of Vicky and Karen.
Yeah, and failed at both. But and I think it's going to continue.
Huh.
Also, go ahead.
No, that's all you're doing.
Gail Kim, Mickie James headlining TNA Impact. I couldn't believe it. Big shot there.
But you know, if you think about it, Gail Kim and Awesome Kong headlined Impact a few years ago. I mean, Gail Kim can go. I mean, she obviously wasn't given a ton of opportunity on Raw and or SmackDown, but, you know, I have no problem with that because right now they have just as much fire and emotion in their matches as some of the other main eventers do in TNA.
Yeah, and that's the bad part about it. I mean, I'm a fan of the knockout, but.
And Linda talked about the ratings on the news desk a little bit. If you really look at the ratings over the last 3 years or so, and the last 4 years, last 5 years, an argument there that TNA is actually improving. I mean, they've gone from, I think, 5 years ago, they were averaging about a 1.05 to last year averaging about a 1.17. They've got growth. Raw has dropped in its rating since that same time. So I guess if you're really comparing apples to apples, now the ratings are substantially different for the two shows. But what was always a successful thing for Impact and TNA? The knockouts. And now they've got two girls that can go. Not that the others can't, but they got two girls that can go, much like what you said, David, with Awesome Kong and Gail Kim of the past. Why not put them in that top spot and see what it delivers?
I feel you, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the TNA champ in the main event, something's wrong. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you didn't have the WWE champ in the main event on Raw tonight.
Good point. Something's wrong there, too.
Okay, you know what? Here, I'm going to give you a little secret. Here's how TNA books their shows. They know that they lose most of their viewers in the second hour because most of the fans have just had enough and they're fed up. So if they don't
Thursday
get
night football, Thursday night NFL.
Yeah, well, there hasn't been Thursday night game in a little while. But if they don't get their champion in the first hour and 25 minutes, there's a good chance at the end of the show no one's going to see him.
Well, hopefully that will change with Genesis going down this Sunday.
You know, and, wait, hold on a second. Let's not forget the past 6 weeks, and you guys may all laugh, and you may think I'm making jokes or cracking jokes, but, you know, MTV has had Jersey Shore and Beavis and Butthead on Thursday nights. Okay? True. When I watch my Twitter feed and my Twitter timeline, everyone's talking TNA that first hour. That second hour starts, wow, I would say a fairly decent portion switches over to the Beavis and Butthead show. And then you got another show after that, so they'd lose a good portion of their audience in that second hour. So they need to get as much stuff in that they want to sell in that first, 45 to 55 minutes.
Yeah, what else did we see on SmackDown last week that's worthy of talking about, Dwayne?
Oh, an Impact. This is not
what did I say? I said SmackDown? Oh, I've already moved on to the next segment. Sorry.
Wow, you're already trying to get past Impact. Why do you hate them so much?
You're turning the channel.
Well, we've got 4 more minutes here to talk Impact, so and then we go back to the phones. So, Dwayne, whatever we can spend it for. Now, keep in mind, as we do this, because this may be received by some as burying TNA, but we will be happy to present to you at least 30 minutes of TNA talk this Thursday night after Impact with Meathead and Dwayne Williams. So there you have it. What else do we have on Impact this week? Dwayne.
Well, we have Genesis coming up.
Oh, yes, you said that. I was about to go over the card real quick. The TNA champion Bobby Roode's going to take on Jeff Hardy. Kurt Angle versus James Storm. The tag team champions Matt Morgan and Crimson versus Samoa Joe and Magnus. D'Angelo De Niro versus Devon again. Bully Ray and an Abyss versus Abyss in a Monsters Ball match. And Abyss has to rejoin Immortal if he loses. X Division 4-way match, Austin Aries, Kid Cash, Jesse Sorensen, and Zema Ion. And then the Knockouts Championship, the main event from last week's Impact, Gail Kim versus Mickie James.
Absolutely. So I'm sure this Thursday we can look forward to them continuing to build this superb card up even more this Thursday on TNA Impact.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
You sound like it.
But I've been having some DVR issues as of late, and for whatever reason, it can't find and doesn't want to record Impact Wrestling. And damn if I'm going to be home Thursday night to watch it.
It's because you still have it under TNA. It is now called Impact Wrestling.
Is that why I was recording something else?
Yes, that's exactly why I was recording the Kardashian show.
Oh.
Come on, Damian.
Well, Dwayne, thank you very much for joining us here on the inaugural edition of the Meltdown, Monday Night Meltdown. We'll be back.
Dwayne, remember, whatever doesn't kill you on Thursday nights will just make you stronger.
Absolutely.
All right?
Let's go back into the phone zone, David Hero, and hear what the fans out there have to say.
The Monday Night Meltdown phone zone is now open. Give us a call live at 1-877-317-9772. And be sure to press 1 to get in where you fit in and be part of tonight's live show. We'll call on you by your area code, and when you hear it, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then proceed with your question or comment.
All right, well, let's go to our first caller in this segment anyways, calling from the 256 area code. Caller from the 256, you're live.
Yeah, this is Mike Myers. I enjoy Monday Night Raw. I actually enjoyed it.
All right. And did Chris Jericho come back to WWE?
Yeah. I didn't get to talk about it because you had so many callers. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that call. Someone who enjoyed WWE RAW. It's been a mixed bag tonight, David Hero. People who did and didn't enjoy the program. Let's go to our next caller. He's calling us from the 210 area code. Caller from the 210. What's your name? Where are you calling from? All right. Again, if you press 1 and you want to talk, you want to be on the program, then just go ahead and listen for your area code. We'll go to you by your area code. And if you've got your phone on mute, just go ahead and take it off now because you never know when we're going to take you. And let's go back to the 210 area code. Caller from the 210, you're live. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? All righty. Must be having some issues on that end there. But David Hero, again, a mixed bag of emotions for WWE RAW tonight. I mean, our Facebook page and the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio just absolutely exploding, blowing up, as they say, with what is going on or what went down tonight on RAW on WWE television. Will the fallout equal more interest, or will the fallout equal more disdain for WWE?
You know what? I think the fans are going to be upset or a little disappointed or whatnot, but how many times do they start off with something slow and it all eventually does make a little bit of sense?
And you didn't even know it happening right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's happened on more than one occasion where the things have been so obvious right in front of us. And then, of course, we go on our rants and we get upset, and then you complain and whine and become the little diva that you can be, only to be proven wrong.
Who are you talking to? Are you talking to Linda?
No, not at all.
That's not fair.
Linda and I got a little chat because that whole workout video thing was a little ridiculous. But
you're still upset about Luke.
I'm sorry? Well, no. I mean, hey, you know what? She is the head reporter, So I just want to make sure that everything's going to be good.
We still have yet to talk about WWE SmackDown. We're still taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard before, the number 877-317-9772. Twitter is all over the place. The chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, again, we appreciate your comments. And we do have a question. And this one's going to be difficult to answer, but the question from the chat room is from Blanchard Buzz, who says, who do you guys think will be the final 4 left in the Royal Rumble? Well, Blanchard, that would be fun to talk about, but I would like to know who the big names are in the Rumble first, because really we only know of one match that's going to happen at the Rumble so far. And reports are, David Hero, that this Randy Orton injury, which is legit, by the way, has substantially thrown a wrench into WWE's plans for the Royal Rumble.
Oh, huge, because you had to figure that Randy Orton was going to win the Royal Rumble. That would have been my pick to win it.
Royal Rumble in St. Louis, Randy Orton's hometown.
Oh, his hometown, absolutely. Why wouldn't he? It makes perfect sense. But boy, right now everything it's all up in the air. I mean, now you got to pick somebody to be the third headliner at WrestleMania. Yeah. And who is that? The main event is Cena and Rock. Then you got Taker and whoever. So now you're looking at who's going to be the third match from the top. Who is that guy going to be? I mean, it's going to be interesting because right now, is it a Sheamus? Is he that guy? He seems to be the logical choice. ADR's out. Not saying ADR would have had a chance. Randy Orton's out. I can't see Big Show or Mark Henry winning that. Right now, you got to figure it's got to be Sheamus. He makes the most sense.
Well, there's obviously one other person who everybody who they can when they get a chance who means anything in the business is endorsing, and that's Cody Rhodes, and a user in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio. Xpac86 says, asking me, can you drive the Cody bandwagon to Los Angeles? I think it started out there. And no, Cody was not the one setting those fires. Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, because he has no heat whatsoever.
We're going to take a time out, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to talk with Matt about WWE SmackDown from this past Friday night, an eventful show which was headlined by Cody Rhodes. This is the Pro Wrestling Report here on Blog Talk Radio. It's the first edition of Monday Night Meltdown. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. Follow us on Twitter for breaking news, live wrestling chat, and pure hilarity. Head over to twitter.com/PWR show and be part of the conversation. You're listening to Monday Night Meltdown live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and broadcasting worldwide on Blog Talk Radio. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. Covering pro wrestling like no other, this is Monday Night Meltdown live on Blog Talk Radio.
And welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown here on Blog Talk Radio. Damian Nelson and David Hero joining you here live tonight. It is Monday night, January 2nd, 2012. It's the first PWR of 2012, David Hero. We obviously had our prime time, 5 more minutes. And some shenanigans also shared last week on the Pro Wrestling Report television, which can be seen, of course, on My24 in Milwaukee and on YouTube and at PWRshow.com. I want to throw a thanks out to all of you, the nearly 3 million of you. 2.7 million people watched the Pro Wrestling Report on YouTube, or 2.7 million views on YouTube last year. Over 1 million listens here on Blog Talk Radio, and on nearly 700,000 views on our website. PWRshow.com. That doesn't include the tens of thousands who tune in each week on My24 Milwaukee or who listen and watch via other means. We appreciate all your support. We also appreciate you joining us here for the first time on Monday Night Meltdown. Why the name change? Why the new show? Why only here on Blog Talk Radio? In an effort to deliver to you a consistent show each and every week, we made the decision to not renew our contract with 540 ESPN in Milwaukee, and a great relationship still exists between this show and 540 ESPN in Milwaukee. However, they just can't give us what we need, which is Monday nights at 10 o'clock each and every week because of other station commitments to air Monday Night Football and the like. So we're here on Blog Talk Radio. We're doing it for you, and we will be here each and every Monday night starting after WWE RAW goes off the air. So no need to try to look for when the show might be on or where the show might be, because we'll be here each and every week bringing you hours and hours of programming each and every week, David Hero.
It's all about the hours and hours and hours and more hours of programming. If you think about it, we do the Meltdown, then we do prime time, then we do a Be the Booker, then we do Sudden Impact, and then we do 5 more minutes. Damn it. Are you kidding me? That's a lot of stuff. A lot of shenanigans. And then all I do is get yelled at about this stuff.
Well, there are rules. There's a rule book in every sport, including this one. It's time for SmackDown.
You don't appreciate the creativity that goes into this. I'm telling you.
So we're going to talk SmackDown in a moment, and then we're going to go into the phone zone for the final time. We know some of you have been trying to get in for a very long time. Keep on trying. Phone lines have been full just about all night. So we'll try to go through the phones again. And remember, if you have indicated that you would like to speak, please listen for your area code, and we will call on you by that. At that point, you get about a second before we have to move on to the next caller if you don't acknowledge. But let's talk about an eventful SmackDown from last week.
Monday Night Meltdown continues with a look back at last week's WWE SmackDown broadcast in the SmackDown Meltdown.
And we are joined here on the Meltdown by yet another new PWR analyst. Please welcome Matthew Thomas to the Pro Wrestling Report. Matthew, welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report and Monday Night Meltdown. And you have the dubious job of bringing us the SmackDown news each and every Monday night right here on the Meltdown. And I got to say, it was an eventful SmackDown last week, especially since it started off and only a way a king would start it. And I'm not talking about King Booker, but I'm talking about the man who, if there were still a King of the Ring, would probably be King of the Ring, Cody Rhodes.
An eventful SmackDown it was. We opened with Booker coming to the ring, thanking fans for what's been an eventful 2011 for him until he was interrupted by a man who claims he has brought honor and prestige back to the Intercontinental title. And I got to say, the Cody Booker feud, I understand what it's trying to accomplish, and but I cannot say I have been overly entertained by it myself.
What is it trying to accomplish?
Well, you eventually think that Cody's going to go over and give him the so-called rub from Booker, but it seems a little unnecessary to me in 2012 to have Booker T competing for the Intercontinental Championship.
He's not going to win it because Cody's a superior athlete at this point.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. That being said, though, when Dustin came out, if the Booker-Cody feud has been a logical bridge to get us to Cody and Dustin, then I can honestly say it seems like it's all been worth it, because I think if this is done correctly, the Cody-Dustin feud, we could have a very, very interesting story develop over the next couple of months.
I found it very, very bizarre that the Bizarre One himself, the Golden One, if you will, made his, I guess, real return, because I think it was on the Christmas special or whatever, but made his real return and came out, and I get it because of what he said, but he came out in the suit. And I don't know why every Rhodes, including Dusty and Cody, has to wear brown shoes with their suits. I like the style, by the way. I notice these things, details. But him coming out in the suit sort of was like, and the fans, there was really no reaction, and maybe that's why they did it. I don't know. It seemed obvious, but there was one man who stood tall in that promo, and this is not just me marking out for another one of my endorsed talents, but Cody Rhodes stood tall in that promo, even though, Booker T may have gotten the best of him briefly, but him attacking his brother... Who was he standing next to
be tall?
I'm talking in a figurative sense, David.
Oh, okay. Just checking, just asking. Must have been Charles Robinson.
Yeah, and in that promo, you had some very good kind of poignant moments that felt real. At one point, Cody questioning whether Booker's commentary skills or lack thereof is actually kind of deteriorating his legacy a little bit. Which you had some moments like that really came across as well done.
The problem with Booker is that he hasn't been on WWE TV, really. He was back for the Rumble. He's been commentating on SmackDown, but a lot of today's fans don't know how good Booker T used to be because they weren't watching him in TNA.
Five-time WCW champion. And really, I don't know if Booker T was ever better than his King Booker time in WWE.
I agree 100%. One one of the better characters I think that I have, seen in the last 10 years in WWE as far as a fun heel, in my opinion.
He was brilliant.
Absolutely, and I got to say, I have been a little let down as far as what he has brought to the commentary. I mean, it was, as you said, moments of brilliance there in the King Booker gimmick, and then, I was hoping to see a little bit more of that kind of shining through with him, going on commentary, and it really has been a very, very different Booker than what he used to bring to the table with that gimmick.
Yeah, you're right.
And we also, in a night of big returns, we also had a return on SmackDown Friday night with none other than Drew McIntyre making his return to the show.
A McIntyre sighting. And with his full entrance, by the way, the epic version.
Absolutely. And I got to say, it's always seemed to me like he's had a lot of potential there, especially in the ring, but me, like many, he's never really done anything to intrigue me by his character. And outside of a little bit of aggressiveness, if you'll recall, he showed for about 5 to 10 minutes. I believe it was in the Elimination Chamber last year. That's pretty much the biggest spark that I've ever seen from him. And I'm not sure exactly where the storyline's going with him. Having to basically. Needing to win, and then, of course, dropping, losing to Ezekiel Jackson the other night. But, I'm hoping it's something that will develop his character in some sort of way. I mean, I want to like him. I want to be interested in the character. So I'm hoping something comes of it anyway.
But Zeke also cheated to win. He had a handful of tights as he pinned Drew, which gave Drew the reason to complain, if you will. He complains to Thaddeus in the spirit of King Booker. He complains to Thaddeus and says, and then Ted tells him, I don't like complainers, I don't like losers, or whatever it might be. And he's on probation as Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. Maybe a storyline.
Wait. Who put him on probation? Teddy Long?
Well, it's less probation, more like Teddy Long saying, you were brought back to SmackDown because you have potential. But now you need to start winning, and if you don't start winning, I'm going to have to consider letting you go.
So Teddy Long put Drew McIntyre on probation, much like the same way you put poor old Andy on probation.
Oh, don't you dare! In front of the brand new Matt Thomas here, you're going to start trying to spew that kind of hate. Listen,
there's some similarities there. Besides you guys both being bald and black.
You made him violate a direct order. Look, this isn't about us. You're cutting into SmackDown time. Matt, I was very impressed with Hunico. Not necessarily as Justin Gabriel, but I don't know if I've never really paid attention to him, but I was very, very impressed, especially with the beatdown after the matchup as well.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think even more importantly than that, anyone who comes to the ring riding on the back of a bicycle, I'm all for push.
A custom bicycle that I think they spent 4 minutes on the commentary explaining to us why it was custom.
Oh, going into detail too. I mean, I felt like I really walked away from it, greatly educated, on the whole side of bicycles. But I'll tell you what I was disappointed with though was that they did not ride it back up the ramp.
True.
If you notice, they pushed it back up the ramp, and that was what I was waiting on, and it didn't happen. But you're right. Overall, all a good match, and I got to say, I'm digging the gimmick.
More on SmackDown this past Friday night. Saw Sheamus in the ring with little Hornswoggle, who can speak, but he only said one word 17 times, which was his name. Going up against the endorsed Heath Slater, who also had some microphone time on SmackDown this past Friday night.
Absolutely, and it was the battle for the best redhead on SmackDown, I believe, as Heath Slater put it.
Those words were said, yes.
I think one of the big things to come out of that, Sheamus covering Journey in the process too, was pretty interesting. But I got to say, here's the thing that does concern me a little bit. Anytime that I see Sheamus with Hornswoggle, I always hope it's not going to be a constant fixture, because I I liked Hornswoggle when they first brought him in initially with Finlay, when he was the out-of-control leprechaun that Finlay couldn't control. And, towards the end of Finlay's run with the WWE, I felt like he really took away from Finlay's character and, really made him a lot softer of a character than I ever really thought I would see Finlay be. And I just, I kind of like Hornswoggle keeping his distance from Sheamus, if you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but, with Heath Slater being endorsed and
oh my God,
Sheamus is one of your Mighty Mouse Club members.
He's one of the studs.
It was a good way to start the year, or at least lead into the new year, watching two guys from two different sides of the aisle standing in the ring, singing to their audience. See, David, endorsed people and Mighty Mouse Club members can be seen together, can have unity, can do better for everyone. Did you?
Well, yeah, you and I hang out together.
I haven't endorsed myself.
Well, you should. My God, if you're going to endorse Heath Slater, you might as well endorse yourself. You guys have both had the same amount of victories in the past two or 3 months.
I have nothing to say to that. Matthew, I'm just going to talk to Matt, David, because, I think he recognizes talent.
Okay.
Wade Barrett, he let that barrage loose on Randy Orton last week. It was shorter than I thought it was going to be, but still effective nonetheless.
Absolutely. And I got to say, I'm sorry to see that feud come to an end. I greatly enjoyed the matches that they had. If nothing else out of last week's SmackDown, we did get the classic fight in the elevator footage, which I don't believe I've seen before.
Oh, you gotta love exclusive footage.
And I think there were some tweets going out there about what was it, elevator full of indie guys or something like that. But there were a lot of people in that elevator.
Yeah, you got to wonder too. In an era where we've got all the specialty WWE pay-per-views, TLC, Money in the Bank, maybe we're not that far off from an elevator pay-per-view up the road.
Oh, then we could have maybe put the elevator in the back of a truck driving down the road and call it a. What was that match, David? It was on a WCW pay-per-view.
That was a bunkhouse buck match, wasn't it?
Yes.
Bunkhouse.
Yes.
Yeah,
I wish we could get if we could have Goldust on or Dustin on and talk about that matchup. I think he explained it on a video once how just whacked out that whole concept and the execution of it was. But actually, as we talk about the endorsed Rhodes family, Dustin was also in that matchup with Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 12, where vehicles were involved.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Goldust and but Goldust is not going to return your calls because he blocked you on Twitter.
I am assisting Goldust in his petitionary efforts to get his match at WrestleMania, but in just contingency mode in case Cody Rhodes isn't defending the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event. He'll need a match.
Bro, you don't have to worry about that whatsoever.
Matt, overall SmackDown last week, what would you say was the highlight and low light for you?
I enjoyed the opening promo. I really did. Like I said, I'm very excited about the potential for Cody, Dustin. I think if they do it right, we've got a very good story built up here over the next couple months.
Did you hear that, David?
Oh, I heard it. That's why he's on your payroll.
Just can't give good credit where it's due. Low light for you, Matt.
It had its moments. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good show. I got to say, Big Show, I'm honestly more ready for Big Show to turn heel, I think, than I am even Cena. The more I see of this face Big Show, he seems to me like he's a very, very over-the-top face whenever, you've got a face Big Show. And it's one thing that just really, no specific moment, but just over time, he's kind of, it really dawned on me last Friday night that, it's time for something different with him. I'm a little tired of the jolly Big Show coming out waving to the fans, and it's something about it that it doesn't quite do it for me.
All right, well, Matt Thomas, we're going to be talking to you again next week right here on the Meltdown about this Friday's now. Then it will be last Friday's SmackDown. But before we let you go, we did talk, David Hero, earlier about the fact that Randy Orton is legitimately injured and causing a little bit of concern on the SmackDown side of things for WWE. And even before that injury, it had been discussed as to whether or not SmackDown needed a little bit more star power. We're going to expand on that conversation this Saturday on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television, and then 5 more minutes. So be sure to tune into both those episodes available at PWRshow.com. Matthew Thomas, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us to talk about WWE SmackDown. And we're going to end the show by recapping what we've talked about so far and taking some more of your phone calls. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown.
Monday Night Meltdown continues after this, live on Blog Talk Radio. Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom. Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. You're listening to Monday Night Meltdown live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and broadcasting worldwide on Blog Talk Radio. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand, and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. Covering pro wrestling like no other, this is Monday Night Meltdown live on Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Meltdown Monday night, January 2nd, 2012. Damian Nelson here along with David Hero. I want to thank Dwayne Williams and Matt Thomas for joining us, talking a little bit about Impact and SmackDown. What a well-rounded show. God, we've talked about everything tonight. Linda with the news, a big Raw, Chris Jericho returning, and David Hero. A big thanks goes out to all of our listeners, as tonight's show was the most listened to live show since, non-pay-per-view live show since July 18th, which was the Monday after Money in the Bank. Go figure. So, you know, you can measure these things. We talk about ratings, and the ratings WWE RAW is going to see for this show tonight. If this is any indication, it's going to be a big night for professional wrestling. The real question that's left out there is, will it transcend over into next week as well?
I think so. It has to, because they're going to have to do some things, whether it be through Twitter or through the .com site or even a little tease on SmackDown or whatnot, to get the fans saying, hey, Jericho's going to talk, because people left the building confused as to what's going on, because they, like you said, they don't have the benefit of watching it on TV and see everything that we can see or hear what Lawler and Cole are saying. But I honestly believe it's going to work out. They're going to have 6 good weeks of TV. They're going to go through the Elimination Chamber, and everything will be all set up for WrestleMania shortly after that.
Let's try the phones one more time.
The Monday Night Meltdown phone zone is now open. Give us a call live at 1-877-317-9772. And be sure to press 1 to get in where you fit in and be part of tonight's live show. We'll call on you by your area code, and when you hear it, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then proceed with your question or comment.
All right, I think that was a little clear there. So, again, let's try this one more time. Go to the phone. Try to take those of you that have been waiting for a while here on the phone lines. We appreciate it. Let's go to a caller calling us from the 517 area code. Caller from the 517, your name and location.
Hey, guys. This is Eric from Michigan. How are you?
Fantastic, Eric, Michigan. You know, one thing I'm very happy to know is our Michigan contingency remains with us here on Blog Talk Radio on the Meltdown. Eric, what do you have for us this week?
Well, you know, I honestly, I feel raped by Raw. I really do. I feel like...
Do you need Saber and Vince when they come to you?
I just feel really dirty. I feel like I'm Katie Vick right now. They didn't even buy me a drink. Like, you know, the whole Brodus Clay's coming. No, he's still not over the last 3 months that they've messed with us. Name one match that had a conclusive ending besides the Cody Rhodes-Daniel Bryan match. Like, an ending that actually made sense and was somebody getting pinned and it ended. And it was like there were shenanigans all night. More shenanigans than Damian Nelson pulls on David Hero. It's just shenanigans.
That never happened.
Any shenanigans.
Alien's not smart to pull shenanigans.
But you know, here's the one thing I think Eric was missing from Raw tonight, and I hate to make this comparison because I don't like it when others do, but if you look back, I don't know if I mentioned this on the air, but if you haven't picked up that Stone Cold Steve Austin DVD, the latest one from WWE, please do yourself a favor and grab that. I think it's almost 3 hours of content, not just matches and bonus footage and stuff like that, him talking and them showing. And God almighty, granted, he is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the most successful person in wrestling, probably in history, yes, even surpassing Hulk Hogan. But if you look at what was happening during those days, the people he was working with, and the atmosphere in those crowds, you had to look for the kids, by the way, because the presentation they were giving, it wasn't PG, and not that PG necessarily matters as much as what a lot of people make it out to. The product, there was just no buzz tonight. The crowd, even when Jericho came out, there was a pop, but they just still seemed sort of flat. Maybe it's because they thought they knew, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to cheer because I knew.
Well, Damien, let's keep in mind we went from Philadelphia to Chicago to Memphis. That's no knock on Memphis, but it's not Philadelphia or Chicago.
But Memphis is very traditionally rich with wrestling. You know, that's where...
Right.
Well, Memphis is traditionally rich in old school wrestling.
If you're a real wrestling fan and you want a good documentary, yeah, the Stone Cold one's really good, but there's something out there called Memphis Heat, and this is fantastic, and it chronicles the Memphis area if you really want to see how that crowd should have been reacting to the wrestling going on there. It was kind of sad, but, like, the hype that was going on around the CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler match and the way that Justin Roberts introduced them, it felt like the old Howard Finkel moments. Not to compare them, it was just the presentation of it. And I think that was probably the most fantastic thing of the night. But other than that, they really spat on us.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I would tend to agree with most of that. But the crowd, I mean, Memphis is. We didn't even see Jerry Lawler in a match. I guess that's a good thing because typically, you know, when they go to Oklahoma City or Tulsa or wherever and Memphis, you know, we end up seeing either JR or the King in the ring. So I'm sort of good. And I think the King wrestled on a house show this past weekend too, which makes it even more bizarre. But Eric out in Michigan, thank you very much for that phone call. David, I'm very surprised at the reaction. Maybe I'm not, but maybe I am surprised at the reaction to Raw is Jericho again tonight.
You know what? It wasn't as loud as I thought it was going to be. It did seem a little bit flat, you know, but who knows how it, you know, translated over TV. I mean, it may have been far louder in the building than it was on the USA Network.
Yeah. Yeah, and generally it is. I'm sure that most people that were there live loved it, and, you know, it was cool. And I was there in 1999 in Chicago in the Allstate Arena when Jericho made his initial debut. And we knew, you sort of knew, I don't even know how we knew at that time because it was really before the internet run wrestling, but you knew it was going to be Jericho, you hoped it was going to be Jericho, and that place exploded. Now, of course, as you said, it was Chicago, but it was still just that moment, the anticipation, the countdown, the blackout, the lights, the music. It's him. You're there. You're experiencing it. So I'm sure those in Memphis had a great experience with it. I really think that come 2 weeks from now, this is going to be pretty high up there in most wrestling fans' interest as far as what they want to see explained and what they want to see more of from WWE. I think this one's going to turn around real quickly. And I really do want to see the interaction that can be had with a heel Chris Jericho and a face CM Punk. Because CM Punk needs it as much as WWE needs it, because him playing off of Johnny Ace is nothing more than, I guess, a revisit of Austin McMahon.
Oh, don't even go there.
I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying.
Well, don't even say in the same breath. Come on. See, that's when all that stuff gets all crappy, is when you start talking like that.
Conceptually, it's the same.
Okay. All right. That's a little bit better, I guess. But, boy, I guess with Jericho, they got to be careful, because they can flip Jericho and Punk from heel and face to face and heel just by the promos that are going to be cut.
Yeah.
I mean, Punk is going to have to trust Jericho to not bury him to the point where the crowd will then say, wow, Punk isn't as cool as we thought he was, because now Jericho's getting over on him. And Jericho is smart enough where if he wanted to, he could do that.
Yeah, and you know why he's smart enough as well? Because the other guy, CM Punk, probably thinks he's smarter.
He very well could.
And that's
so
the problem.
That's why they're going to have
I'm not saying whether he is or isn't. I'm just saying he might think that he is, and that could be a problem with a guy the caliber of Jericho. Because really, who have we seen CM Punk work with that has that type of ability on the microphone? He hasn't really done much with John Cena. Obviously,
it was Triple H. It was Triple H, but Triple H got over on him.
Right.
And that's been it.
The fans would not be ready for that.
No, not at all. It's going to be interesting.
Wow. Monday Night Meltdown, David Hero. Some new voices, new segments, some fun. Obviously, we had just a few minor issues at the beginning of the program. I want to thank all of you for joining us, including the nearly 500 of you at one point that were in the chat room. Again, we do watch what you're saying in the chat room. We can't follow every word, because I think if you multiply 500 by your average sentence, which is probably 40, 50 characters long, it's a lot of frickin' digits and letters and numbers to be trying to read. We can't do that all at once, so we do appreciate you discussing what we are discussing with each other in our chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, and we appreciate even more those of you who follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report, and on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter. And we will get to as many of your comments as we can during the show, and for the many of you that called in as well tonight on our inaugural edition of being here on Blog Talk Radio solely with Monday Night Meltdown. Again, want to thank Linda, want to thank Matt, want to thank Dwayne, and as we said, Nita was scheduled to join us tonight, but not able to due to a personal situation. So we will be back with you again here Thursday night on Blog Talk Radio for Sudden Impact Radio, then Friday, David Hero for Be the Booker, Saturday for Prime Time, Sunday for the Post Show for TNA Genesis. But before all that, tomorrow, PWRshow.com, it's Ask the Booker. Ask the Booker one question. We'll see whose question got selected. To answer that tomorrow, I believe we're going to be talking about, I don't even remember actually, David Hero, what came in the show notes. We'll find out tomorrow, PWRshow.com for Ask the Booker. So we will see all of you here Thursday night for Sunday Impact Radio. For the rest of the PWR team, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. Stop stalking your ex and be our friend on Facebook and join the tremendous worldwide discussion. Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report. Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand. And get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web.